I was the daughter no one claimed, the one they joked wasn't really family, and I learned to stay quiet, stay small, stay out of photos, until the night my phone lit up and my father's voice broke in a way I had never heard before, because the sister they loved more than anyone was dying in a hospital bed, her kidneys shutting down, and the doctor said only one person on earth could save her life: me, the girl they spent years pretending didn't exist. So in one breath, I went from forgotten to necessary, from invisible to vital. And standing there in my kitchen with his words shaking in my ear, I realized something terrifying. The people who hurt me most were now depending on me to live, and I had to decide whether I would save her life or finally let mine be the only one that mattered. Tell me, what would you have done? I still remember the first time I understood I was different in that house. It wasn't a big moment or a loud fight. It was something small, the kind of thing most people would forget, but I never did. It was a warm afternoon, and the kitchen smelled like roasted chicken and lemon, sunlight falling across the table where plates were already set. And I reached for a fork because I wanted to help. I wanted to be useful. I wanted someone to look at me and smile like I belonged there too. But my stepmother's hand moved faster than mine, and she slid the drawer shut and said, "Don't touch that," in a voice so calm it almost sounded polite, except it wasn't. It was the kind of calm that pushes you away without raising its tone. And I froze with my fingers still in the air, like I'd done something wrong just by existing, and no one said anything after that. My father kept talking about work, my sister kept swinging her legs under the chair, humming to herself, and the moment passed for them like nothing happened. But for me, it stayed. It settled in my chest like a stone I carried everywhere. And that was how it always was. Not shouting, not cruelty anyone could point at, just little things, little looks, little silences, little reminders that I was there, but not really part of it. Like when family photos were taken and no one called my name until the last second. Like when trips were planned and I only heard about them after the suitcases were already by the door. Like when my sister laughed and they laughed with her, but when I spoke, the room got quiet, like a radio losing signal. And I used to lie awake at night staring at the ceiling, wondering what it was about me that made love stop at the edge of their voices. Wondering if maybe I talked wrong or smiled wrong or existed wrong. And still I kept trying. I kept watching them the way you watch a movie you hope will change endings if you sit through it enough times. I memorized what made them laugh, what made them nod, what made them proud, thinking maybe if I learned the pattern, I could fit inside it. Maybe one day my name would sound natural coming out of their mouths instead of accidental. And the strange thing is, hope can survive almost anything, even years of being overlooked, because some small, stubborn part of me believed that someday something would happen that would make them see me, really see me, not as the extra, not as the outsider, but as theirs. I just never imagined that the thing that would finally make them look at me was a hospital call and a doctor saying my body was the only one that could keep their favorite daughter alive. So I have to ask you, have you ever felt like you were standing inside a family that somehow didn't see you? And if you know that feeling, make sure you like and subscribe and stay with me, because what happened after that phone call changed everything. I was standing by the dryer folding warm towels when the phone rang, steam still clinging to the fabric and the soft smell of detergent rising into the air. And I almost ignored it because the number wasn't saved, but something in my chest tightened before I even answered, like my body already knew this call didn't belong to an ordinary afternoon. And when I pressed the phone to my ear and heard my father's voice, I felt my stomach drop because he didn't say hello or ask how I was. He just said my name slowly, like it might break if he spoke too loud. And then he told me she was in the hospital. My sister, the one who used to walk past me like I was furniture. Her kidneys were failing, doctors running tests, time running out. And his words sounded far away at first, like they were coming through water. But then he said something that snapped everything into sharp focus. They tested the whole family and no one matched. Not him, not her mother, not any relatives they called, except me. And suddenly, the room felt smaller, the air thicker, my fingers gripping the towel so tight it twisted in my hands. Because this was the same family who once took a Christmas photo without me because they said they thought I was asleep. The same voices who laughed softly when I mispronounced words as a kid. The same house where I learned how to walk quietly so no one would notice I was there. And now those same people were waiting for me to answer a question that wasn't really a question at all, because what he was asking for wasn't a favor. It was a piece of my body, a surgery, a scar, a risk, something I could never take back once it was gone. And I could hear hospital sounds behind him, faint beeping, footsteps, a voice calling something over an intercom. And he kept talking fast like he was afraid I might hang up if he paused, explaining doctors and timelines and how they needed to know soon. But his words blurred together because my mind was stuck on one thought. Why did it take her dying for them to remember I existed? I walked to the kitchen sink without realizing it and stared at my reflection in the window, seeing a woman holding a decision that suddenly made her more important to them than she had ever been in her entire life. And that realization didn't feel powerful the way you might think. It felt heavy, like someone had set a weight on my chest and said, "Don't drop this or she dies." And I wish I could tell you I answered right away, that I knew what kind of person I was in that moment. But the truth is, I just stood there listening to him breathe on the other end of the line, while years of memories pressed in around me. And I realized whatever I said next would decide not only whether she lived, but whether I could live with myself after. So tell me honestly, if the people who made you feel invisible suddenly needed you to survive, would you help them? And if you want to hear what I told him, make sure you like and subscribe and stay with me, because the next words out of my mouth changed everything. I didn't answer him right away. I just listened to the sound of his breathing through the phone, uneven and thin, like even his lungs were nervous. And in that silence, every memory I had tried to bury started pushing forward. The birthdays where my name wasn't on the cake. The car rides where no one noticed I hadn't spoken for miles. The nights I cried quietly into my pillow so no one would hear and tell me I was being dramatic. And for a second, my grip tightened on the counter because a small, sharp voice inside me whispered this was my chance to finally let them feel what it was like to be helpless and ignored. My chance to say no the way life had said no to me for years. And I won't lie to you. That thought felt good for exactly one heartbeat. It felt powerful in a way I had never felt before. But then another feeling pushed in behind it, softer but stronger. And it wasn't about them at all. It was about the girl I used to be, the one who stood in doorways hoping someone would choose her. Because I realized if I said no out of anger, I wouldn't just be punishing them. I would be turning into the kind of person I had spent my whole childhood wishing someone else wouldn't be. And that scared me more than surgery ever could. So I asked him questions instead. How long she had, what the doctor said, what the risks were. And he sounded surprised, like he expected yelling or silence instead of calm, like he knew he hadn't earned patience from me. And the more he explained, the more real it became. The hospital room, the machines, her lying there weak and scared. And suddenly I wasn't seeing the sister who ignored me at dinner tables. I was seeing a human being who didn't want to die. And something inside my chest loosened just enough for me to breathe. Because in that moment, I understood something no one had ever taught me, that closure doesn't always come from apologies. Sometimes it comes from knowing you chose who you wanted to be when you finally had the power to choose. And before I could overthink it, before fear or pride could argue back, I heard myself say, yes, I would get tested again. I would talk to the doctors. I would see if I could do it. And the silence on the line after that was different from before. Not tense, not cold, just stunned, like he didn't know what to do with kindness he hadn't earned. And when he finally whispered, "Thank you," His voice cracked in a way I had never heard in my life. And after the call ended, I stood there staring at my reflection with my hands still shaking, not because I was afraid anymore, but because for the first time I didn't feel like the invisible girl from that house. I felt like someone who had chosen her own story. So tell me, do you think I made the right decision, or would you have done something different? And if this story stayed with you even for a moment, make sure you like and subscribe and stay with me, because what happened after the surgery is something I will never forget. Months after the surgery, I went back to the hospital on a quiet afternoon when the halls smelled faintly of antiseptic and coffee, and the sunlight came through the tall windows in soft, pale strips. And I almost turned around twice before I reached her door, because part of me was afraid nothing would be different, afraid she would look at me the same way she always had, like I was just someone passing through her life instead of someone tied to it. But when I finally stepped inside, she was sitting up in bed with color in her face and strength in her shoulders. And when her eyes found mine, they didn't slide away or harden or pretend not to see me. They held on, careful and steady, like she was afraid I might disappear if she blinked. And for a second, neither of us spoke. The machines hummed softly beside her, and I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. And then she did something she had never done in all the years we'd lived under the same roof. She reached for my hand, her fingers warm and a little shaky as they wrapped around mine. And she whispered, "I used to believe what they said about you, that you weren't really my sister, that you didn't belong with us." And her voice cracked as she said it. "But now, every morning I wake up and breathe because of you." And I swear, something inside my chest shifted when I heard that. Not fireworks, not some dramatic movie moment, just a quiet release, like a door inside me finally opening after being stuck for years. Because the truth is, the past didn't vanish, and the hurt didn't magically disappear, but it lost its grip. It stopped owning me. And standing there with her hand holding mine, I realized I wasn't saving her life to earn love or fix history or prove anything to them. I did it because I finally understood I was never the invisible one. They were just the ones who couldn't see. And walking out of that room, I felt lighter than I ever had in that house growing up. Lighter because for the first time, I wasn't hoping to belong somewhere. I belonged to myself. So tell me honestly, if you were standing where I stood, would you have made the same choice? And if this story stayed with you even for a moment, make sure you like and subscribe and stay with me, because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose kindness when no one expects you to.